In this video, I'm going to learn how to create a new month design like this. The link to download the resources will be given in the description so you can check them out to follow suit. I'll come over to Photoshop, I'll click on new, and I'll be creating a 4x4 inch document. I'll click on create. Next off is I'll add a solid fill to my design. I'll add a solid color just like that, and I'll create OK. Next off is I'll bring in my smart object. I'll draw this in the design and I'll click on OK. I can set this to multiply. Press Ctrl T on your keyboard and reduce it nicely into your design. Next off is I would like to add my textures. I'll drop in this texture and I'll click on OK. Next off is I'll set it to linear bond. Click on OK, and we can reduce the fill to 25%. After doing that, pick up the second texture and drop it in the design like that. I'll click on OK and I'll set this to color dodge. We'll pick up this light and we'll drop it in the design like that. I'll click on OK. This time we can set this to linear dodge. We can reduce the fill to somewhere around 45%, so we can have a nice blend like this. Next off is I would like to type my design. I'll come over here and I'll be using the font called Work Sans. I'll change the color to white and I'll click on OK. Set it to center and I'll type August. I'll click on OK like this. I'll press Ctrl T on my keyboard and I'll open it nicely like this. I'll click on OK, press Ctrl A and I'll centralize it both horizontally and vertically. Press Ctrl D on my keyboard, press Ctrl T and I'll expand it a bit more. I'll click on Enter on my keyboard. Next off is I'll duplicate this and I'll set the fill to 2%. After doing that, I'll right click, I'll click on blending options and I'm going to add a stroke to the design. I'll add a stroke that is of color and we can use a 4 stroke. I will reduce the opacity and I'll set it to inside just like that, and we can click on OK. Next off is I'll use my arrow keys to drop it like that. I'll double click here and I'll set my stroke to normal. I'll click on OK and we can increase our opacity to 100. Bring in my arrow keys and set my August like this. Next off is I'll pick my text tool again. I'll create a new layer this time and I'll type 8 since August is the 8th month of the year, and I'll click on, press Ctrl A, select this and I'll be using this same pop color. I'll click OK and I'll click OK here. I'll press Ctrl T on my keyboard and I'll drag it out nicely like this. I'll click on OK and I'll drop it here in the middle of both of them. Press Ctrl T and I'll make sure that both of them are like this. After doing so, we can reduce the tracking of the August vertically. We can raise this up to somewhere around 75 pixels. Click on cancel and I will do this to remove the tracking horizontally. After doing this, you can click on OK. You can increase the tracking here also to same 75 and I'll click on OK. After doing that, we can reduce the 8 to fit into the design nicely like this. And after doing that, next off is I'm going to type welcome. I'll click on and create a new layer, pick my text tool and I'll type welcome over here. I'll be using the regular version and we can type welcome to. Press Ctrl A and I'll set this to white. click on OK. I'll press Ctrl A on my keyboard and I'll align it to the center. I'll press Ctrl D and I'll bring it down just like this. After doing that, you can select the O August, press Ctrl G and press Ctrl A to make sure it's aligned. Press Ctrl D to deselect, and we would like to add a call to action button. You can come over here and drop it here nicely like this. Pick here and I'll be adding the Instagram. I'll right click and I'll copy a layer and I'll just drag it into my document nicely like this. Press Ctrl T to reduce it, and here we go. I'll drop it here nicely like this, and I'll duplicate this welcome and I'll raise it up over here. Bring it to my design here and I'll type the Instagram handle. So you can just bring in your Instagram handle here. For this design, I'll be writing innovative collections. You can do well to follow on Instagram. I'll click OK and I'll place it nicely like this. I'll select the two layers and I'll make sure they are aligned. I'll group them. I'll press Ctrl A and align them to the center. I'll press Ctrl D to deselect. Next off is I'll right click and I'll click on blending options. After doing so, I'll set it to color overlay and I'm going to change this to white. I'll click OK and I'll click OK. Press Ctrl T on my keyboard to reduce it nicely like this. And after doing this, I'll be able to create a new month flyer like this. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.